Every time my wife screamed, "Which slut are you sneaking around with?" I would tremble and try to explain myself, never knowing the truth. She wasn't asking me, she was asking her own tattered conscience. Suffocating control doesn't stem from the fear of loss. It stems from guilt. The traitor often attacks first to keep you busy defending yourself, and while you're busy bowing your head to prove your innocence, they casually turn you into the perfect smokescreen for their own sins. I sit here in front of this lens, my hands clasped tight to hide the tremors, but my eyes still unconsciously dart to a small wrinkle on my sleeve. I am 74 years old this year, at an age where a man should be free to let go of appearances. I catch myself holding my breath, terrified that this blue-striped shirt isn't crisp enough under the studio lights. This room is very quiet, just the faint hum of the camera, a stark contrast to the chaotic noise inside my head for the past 40 years. I'm just sitting here to tell my story, a simple thing that thousands of people do. But my heart is still pounding and my ears are still straining unconsciously, waiting for a shout from behind the curtain or an accusation that I am making eyes at the studio assistant. No one is scolding me. Everyone here is waiting patiently. But it is in this respectful silence that I'm shocked to realize the devastating after effect of my life. I'm sitting in a safe zone, but my mind is still kneeling in a courtroom waiting for a verdict from a judge who is no longer present. People often think that hysterical jealousy is a twisted expression of deep love. That if a wife checks her husband's phone every night or interrogates every minute of his schedule, it's because she is too afraid of losing her man. I used to naively believe that too, just like you. I used to think Brenda's suffocating control stemmed from the insecurity of a heart that was too sensitive, and I spent my whole life trying to prove my innocence as a sedative for her. But the thing that truly destroyed me, more brutally and sophisticatedly than any whip, was the truth hidden behind that curtain of jealousy. It wasn't the fear of loss, it was the projection of guilt. I didn't know that in psychology there is a concept called projection. It turns out the harshest accusations she threw in my face every day weren't questions. They were unconscious confessions. When she screamed, "Who are you sneaking around with?" she was actually asking her own conscience that question. She didn't attack me because she suspected me. She attacked me to keep me busy defending myself. Busy explaining myself to the point where I never had enough clarity to look over the fence where she was doing exactly the terrible things she ascribed to me. I didn't live in a prison with iron bars. If you were my neighbor, you would have seen a model 64-year-old man leaving for work on time in the morning, driving straight home in the afternoon, mowing the lawn and washing the car on weekends. A life so fine, it was boring. But the biggest mistake of my life didn't lie in the sins I committed, but in the vast emptiness of the things I didn't do. I didn't dare lift my head to look at the cashier at the supermarket, just because I was afraid Brenda would ask why I was smiling. I didn't dare keep a single old friend from college because I feared the ping of a text message would trigger a rage that lasted 3 days. I didn't fight back, I just shrank away. I voluntarily turned myself into a blank sheet of paper, erasing every hobby, every relationship, every personal joy with the naive hope that If I became transparent, she would have nothing left to suspect. I proactively handed my phone to her to check every night before she could even demand it. I proactively reported my schedule minute by minute, including bathroom breaks. I deceived myself that this absolute submission was the only way to maintain peace, the price to pay for a home. I thought I was a devoted husband trying to soothe my wife's pain, without realizing I was just a puppet tying strings to my own limbs to make it easier for the puppeteer to pull them. I normalized the abnormal accepted suffocation as an essential part of the air I breathed every day. Not once, but thousands of evenings I sat in my car in front of the garage gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, telling myself, just endure a little longer, everything will get better. I lived a life postponed by imaginary milestones I drew to soothe my own cowardice. I remember my 40th birthday clearly when I wanted to join the company bowling team. But then I thought, no, wait until the kids go to college, then Brenda will be less stressed. Then the kids went to college, the house became empty, and I thought again, wait until she hits menopause, her temperament will settle down. Then 50 years old, 60 years old passed by. That word, wait, became a tombstone, burying me alive while I was still breathing. I thought time would be the cure for her paranoia. I believed that if I was patient enough, transparent enough, old and harmless enough, Brenda's jealousy would naturally die out like a fire running out of wood. But I was wrong. Time didn't loosen the noose. It only calloused my neck to get used to the feeling of choking. I let 3 decades pass in complicit silence waiting for a peaceful tomorrow, without knowing that it would never come if I kept bowing my head. The truth was exposed not through a loud jealousy scene, but through the security camera at the back door, the very thing Brenda had forced me to install a month ago. She insisted on installing it with the reason to catch red-handed the whores you sneak into the house. I complied with a naive belief that the unfeeling camera would be the iron witness vindicating my innocence. But on that fateful Thursday afternoon, my phone alerted me to motion. I opened the app expecting to see a stray cat or the mailman. But no, on the grainy black and white screen, I saw Brenda. She wasn't standing there with her usual scowl. She was standing close to the widowed male neighbor, her hand gently stroking the lapel of his jacket with the tenderness and care I hadn't tasted for 20 years. She whispered something that made him laugh. Then she looked up straight into the lens, and with a calmness that made my skin crawl, she reached up and covered the camera. The moment the screen went black, I knew I had lost. I didn't lose because I had done anything wrong. I lost because I realized that for all those years, every time she screamed and accused me of sleeping around, she wasn't talking to me at all. She was talking to her own reflection in the mirror. That frantic jealousy wasn't because she was afraid of losing me. It was the perfect velvet curtain cover her own sins. By the time I understood the truth of that charade, I was already a 64-year-old man with empty hands and a hollow soul. The most painful feeling wasn't the betrayal of the flesh, because at this age, physical desire is just ashes, but the betrayal of life's purpose. I realized I no longer had the ability to smooth out the crumpled blueprint of my life. I couldn't turn back time to pick up the phone and call those old friends I had ruthlessly cut off years ago just to please Brenda. I couldn't resurrect the hobbies, the carefree smiles that I had strangled with my own hands to prove my fidelity. I spent a whole lifetime building a fortified defensive fortress, meticulously plastering every brick of transparency, only to realize the enemy never attacked me from the outside. The enemy was already in the house, and she used her accusations against me as a shield to protect her own guilt. I fought on the wrong battlefield against the wrong opponent for the wrong purpose. This enlightenment came when my hair was already gray. It didn't bring relief like in the movies, it brought a vast, cold regret. I squandered my most brilliant years defending myself against a crime I never committed, while the real perpetrator used my very naivety to sleep soundly every night. I used to believe that absolute transparency was the highest form of fidelity. I assumed that a man with nothing to hide was a great man. I treated handing my phone to Brenda for inspection every night as a sacred ritual to prove my love, like offering up my faith. I thought if I lived cleanly enough, transparently enough, her suspicion would have nowhere to latch on to. But the bitterest reversal of values lies right there. I traded privacy, the most basic human right, to buy peace, and in the end I lost both. I made a fatal confusion between being a good husband and being an obedient suspect. I thought submission was a virtue, but in reality, it was a catalyst for cruelty. My gentleness didn't make Brenda love me more. It only made her despise me more and feel safer in her wrongdoing, because she knew for sure that the foolish husband at home was busy proving his innocence, instead of paying attention to what she was doing. I spent my whole life keeping my hands clean, unstained by any affair, but allowed my soul to be stained by the cowardice of accepting my dignity being trampled. I thought I was the devoted gatekeeper of this marriage. It turns out I was just the perfect smokescreen hiding someone else's lies. And that misconception of my own worth is the one thing I can never forgive myself for. I cannot turn back the clock to snatch that phone from Brenda's hand on the very first night she demanded my password. I cannot go knocking on the doors of every old friend to apologize for cowardly cutting ties, hoping they forgive my disappearance. I am a man completely bankrupt in terms of time standing and watching the most precious asset of a human life slip down the sewer of meaningless submission. What I have left now is just an expensive lesson bought with 40 years of bowing my head, a price too high for a truth that came too late. But you sitting in front of this screen, you still have the chance to stand up straight. You, who might be trembling while drafting a long-winded text explaining why you are 15 minutes late, or trying to ransack your memory to see if you accidentally smiled at anyone on the street. You don't need to live like a hard labor prisoner in your own home. Don't wait until your hair is gray and your skin is spotted to understand this. In a healthy relationship, trust is the default, not something you have to struggle to prove every day like a defendant in court. Tear up that absurd indictment and step out of the dock right now, because quite possibly the judge convicting you every day is the real criminal. Are the recording lights off yet? I want to sit in this darkness a little longer. I don't have a glorious ending to show off to you. I only have the naked truth of a man who spent his life proving he was innocent in a case that didn't exist. My peace now is real, but it arrived too late when my heart was too old to flutter or trust ever again. And you, When you go home tonight, facing those familiar interrogation questions, those suspicious eyes hiding behind the shadow of love, try just once not to rush into explaining yourself. Look deep into that person's eyes and ask yourself a single question, a question I wish I had been brave enough to ask 40 years ago. Is their anger truly directed at you? Or is it the scream of fear as they see their own demon reflected in your purity? And how many more days do you plan to let your purity be used as a shield for their sins?